It was in the fall of 2008. I was meeting with Rabbi Gutterman. He indicated that Joe Chazan was funding works of art for public places. And Rabbi Gutterman suggested that maybe I should see if he'd be interested in commissioning a piece of art on the grounds of Temple Beth-El. I did not follow up, but approximately a year later, I got a telephone call from Joe. He said, I thought about it, I'd like to do it. And we sort of mapped out steps to bring this thing to fruition.
We are a temple, we are an organization, and there are some governing principles and processes that we chose to follow, as we would follow with any other grant of significance such as this.
I called a special meeting of the executive committee of the temple and also invited the chairperson of the finance committee, the chairperson of the building and grounds committee, the chairperson of our legal committee.
The executive committee had an important role to play in vetting this process. I think it was in fairness to all the parties, including the temple, including the rabbi, and including Dr. Chazan, that an orderly process and a fair process be followed to ensure that all interested parties had an opportunity to weigh in.
The executive committee was pretty enthusiastic about it. The group voted unanimously to accept the gift.
The piece is given by my family in memory of my wife, Helene, and in honor of the rabbi's 40 years, which sort of makes the statement from me personally about my commitment at the temple.
Well, it makes me feel very proud and also very grateful for the friendship that I've had with the Chazan family. I've shared many of their family milestones, as I have with many congregants, but the relationship with Joe went much deeper because he was the temple president at the time when my first wife was dying, and his steadfast support made a great difference in my life. He also was responsible for a capital campaign that literally refurbished the synagogue. There was a renewal of this building that speaks to his dedication to the art community because, among other things, we have magnificent installations by Howard Bentrey and Dan Clayman that adorn the lobby. What Joe did was to really beautify the synagogue. There's an expression about the beauty of holiness and the holiness of beauty, and that became a shining reality because of Joe's labors and his love for this synagogue.
Rabbi Gutterman is not just a rabbi in the temple, he's a rabbi throughout the community. So it seemed to me that it would be appropriate to have an art form, which I think is one of the good things that people do. So I thought that the art piece should be outside so that the community could share in its presence. I asked Jonathan Bonner, who I've worked with before and who has public art pieces around the community, to consider this event.
We're laypersons, and we benefited by the presentations of Jonathan Bonner, who was available to answer questions, give his notion of what he was trying to accomplish, and that proved very, very helpful. And many of us were familiar with his works before. The process went smoothly, and people who attended and had opportunities to participate in the process were very welcoming to the notion of an outdoor sculpture.
At first I came up with a concept which was entirely in my brain. And then, I did sketches of it in my sketchbook. Then I did schematic drawings of the thing. Then we made a 3D model in the computer of it. And from that, the model was made on a CNC machine. We made this brass model. And with that same 3D model, we're going to generate the patterns to make the actual piece. It's 30 feet high, and the base is 5 feet from tip to tip. and it's 10 inches across at the top. And it's sort of like a big tree trunk in a way. I mean, it has that kind of form. And it's ribbed like the way sequoias are. Lots of trees have a similar shape. The piece is going to be fabricated out of bronze plate, and then the pieces will be formed because they have to be rolled. They aren't complex bends like a spoon or a bowl. They're all simple bends. And so they'll be formed and then welded together. Yeah. I made a full-scale mock-up of the bottom 10 feet or 10 and a half feet of the sculpture, and the purpose of it is to establish the exact location, because we're going to have to come in here and dig the footing, do the concrete, and also the landscape design. So we have to know exactly where it is, and the best way to do that is with a full-scale mock-up.
If you need symbolism for the spirituality, the cross-section at any point is a Star of David. So it is impossible to see that unless you were underground looking up or above the 30-foot piece. But knowing that that's the cross-section gives it this spirituality.
I sort of got a whole list of Jewish symbols, of the main one of which is Star of David. And I didn't want sort of an overt symbol.
Many of us identify Judaism and the Jewish heritage and legacy by that six-pointed star. If you were to cut across that spire and to look down, you would see that star shining through. So it's a kind of hidden treasure, as it were.
Because of the nature of the site, it was on a raised piece of grass which gets virtually no pedestrian traffic up next to it. And that something vertical would be good, because it's sort of a horizontal building, and there's light poles and phone poles and other things like that, and I wanted something that was taller than those. That's the other thing about the Star of David. It gives the piece a lot of structure, perfect triangulated structure, so it's going to be very, very strong. It's fabricated bronze. Bronze is progressive, it does stuff. If you just clean it off and leave it, it'll turn dark, it'll go the way of the penny, you know what I mean? And if it's outside, it'll take its own patina. So the patina is a way to speed that along. There's different kinds of patinas, and you can give it a color that has significance to the piece. In this case, I wanted something that was rich. I didn't want a cakey patina. I definitely didn't want green. And I wanted something to make it look like it's at home where it is. I do want it to fit the setting, and it's like giving it a suit of clothes so that it's appropriate for the setting. After it was put in, it looked like it had always been there. And it was largely because of the color. It was exciting, and it was a lot of work, and it's good to have it finally done, in the ground.
Not surprisingly, I think Jonathan has created a sculpture that is compatible with the environment and is enhancing to the space and to the community.
We wanted to give the artist the free hand to design it as he felt best and felt was appropriate. And yet at the same time that this work of art not be designed by committee.
It's very attractive. It's by itself. It doesn't seem to conflict with Percival Goodman's structure. I think they're both unique, and I think that the temple should be proud to have both of them on its grounds.
Any public art piece, really doesn't matter what it is, there has to be a difference of opinion. And my guess is that after time goes on, people get used to it. Either they love it and they like to see it all the time, or it becomes part of the environment and they don't pay any attention to it.
Well, it's hard to know how art impacts people, but some of us think that it may become its own iconic symbol of the temple. So like many art pieces that we need to live with and get used to and befriend in our own way, this is still at the very beginning where it's hard to gauge what it's about. But I think that the fact that it's a bold statement and that it is something that is not a kind of classic traditional installation speaks very much to the future of the congregation and what we hope is a synagogue that will continue from generation to generation.